Someone who values the role of people of all faiths in American life. I'm always touched by the amazing stories of love, service, and compassion that take place in this country every single day. They reinforce the power of my Christian faith, which has guided me through my presidency and in my life, as a husband, as a father, and as president.
You look great.
I feel good.
How much do you weigh?
You know, about 180.
That's just about where I am, and I don't look so good at 180.
You look sharp.
You haven't seen me naked.
We're going to keep it that way.
As the president said last night, the president has to be the president of all the people. This unfortunately demonstrated the demeaning attitude that Governor Obama has toward a large segment of the American people.
You have a man lying through his teeth. You have a deranged Pelosi who calls Romney Governor Obama. Then you have a lapdog press that is incomprehensible that we're living through all of this, and yet we are. Welcome to the Savage Nation. The Today Show is focused upon the media meltdown. And the question to you is, I'm going to read you some topics. I'm going to give you some examples of what the worthless media is distorting and what the worthless media is ignoring. And then I'm going to invite you to call this creative show, The Savage Nation, with topics that are burning alive inside your heart for expression in your local paper or expression on your television shows that you used to rely upon. Let me begin with an article, so well written, a couple of sentences. One of my favorite writers, Charles Hurt, Washington Times. Listen to this paragraph. What we are in the midst of witnessing right now is a complete Fukushima-style meltdown of the mainstream media. Without these slobbering lapdogs, Letterman, President Obama never would have been elected in the first place. And now they are his only hope for staying in office amid all the global violence, a morbidly paralyzed economy, and a national crisis of confidence so profound that the American dream has become nothing more than quaint fiction for millions. Now let's go on to the newspapers that have some respect. Respected newspapers around the world are reporting that the Obama administration was explicitly warned days before the attack on the American consulate in Libya, in which your ambassador was brutally killed and sodomized, by the way. But Obama officials, the dolts that they be, the university dolts that they are, did nothing to stop the worst terrorist attack on the U.S. since 9/11. Now I want to cut to the Letterman show, another useless idiot, a man who's made a mockery of the word comedian. Listen to clip 20 and listen to the president lying.
The ambassador to Libya killed in an attack on the consulate in Benghazi.
Right.
Is this an act of war? Are we at war now?
No.
What happens here?
Well, here's what happened. You had a video that was released by somebody who lives here, sort of a shadowy character, who is an extremely offensive video directed at Muhammad and Islam.
Making fun of the Prophet Muhammad.
Making fun of the Prophet Muhammad.
Now, I want you to stop right there. The president says Muhammad, and the lapdog, the loser, the man who has no soul, the man who has no character, the man who has no body, the empty suit, the empty shell, Letterman actually corrects the president because he works for the worst network in history, owned by General Electric, which pays no taxes. And Letterman says, after the president rightly says Muhammad, Letterman actually corrects him and says, the Prophet Muhammad. I want you to see how bad this is. That as leftist as the president is, the media is even worse. 4 years after promising to cut the deficit in half, Obama has exploded the debt to a record $16 trillion. Welfare rolls ballooning to levels unimaginable. And the administration is paying for campaigns to recruit more people onto welfare. The $50 billion in defense cuts that Panetta and Obama wish to engage in, according to they themselves, they're saying will be deeply destructive to national security, domestic investments, and core government functions. There's more. There's more. And then instead of the vermin in the media focusing on the greatest foreign policy disaster in modern American history, which is the Arab world blowing up in the face of the academic lunatics who work for Obama, who have no idea what they have wrought. They have no idea what they've created. They are denying what they've created because they only talk to each other. The other night he goes to a party with some rapper, I don't even know his name, who has gold champagne bottles lined up. Gold champagne bottles. Then Obama comes out with a straight face and says it's about taxing the rich. It's incomprehensible this goes on. So let's focus a little bit more on the media meltdown. What other topics is the worthless media distorting or ignoring? I'll give you one. This came to us today from Forbes.com. Antarctic sea ice sets another record. Not getting smaller, Mr. Gore, getting deeper. Antarctic sea ice set another record this past week with the most amount of ice ever recorded on day 256 of the calendar year. Please, nobody tell the mainstream media or they might have to retract some stories and admit they are misrepresenting scientific data. National Public Radio published an article on its website last month claiming, quote, 10 years ago, a piece of ice the size of Rhode Island disintegrated and melted in the waters of Antarctica. Two other massive ice shelves along the Antarctic Peninsula had suffered similar fates a few years before. The events became poster children for the effects of global warming. There's no question that unusually warm air triggered the final demise of these huge chunks of ice, close quote. NPR, though, failed to mention anywhere in its article that Antarctic sea ice has been growing since satellites first began measuring the ice 33 years ago, and the sea ice has been above the 33-year average throughout 2012. Indeed, none of the mainstream media are covering this important story. A Google News search of the terms Antarctic, sea ice, and record turns up not a single article on the Antarctic sea ice record. Amusingly, page after page of Google News results for Antarctic sea ice record shows links to news articles breathlessly spreading fear and warning of calamity because Arctic sea ice recently set a 33-year low, which is a lie. Sea ice around one pole is shrinking, while sea ice around another pole is growing. This sure sounds like a global warming crisis to me. And that's from James Taylor in Forbes.com. Now, the reason I'm focusing on this is because they're lying about Romney. They're selectively editing what Romney said 3 months ago, as they edited Michael Savage in order to make certain I was put on a list with murderers and terrorists. You do know that I'm the only member of the American media forbidden from entering the once United Kingdom. It's now a disunited kingdom run by a bunch of patsies, but I'm not allowed in there. Why? The very same rats in Media Matters, in my opinion, who are distorting what Romney did, distorted what I said, sent it to the idiots in England, and they banned me putting me on a list of people who have actually killed and murdered people. Now they're trying to turn Romney into a killer. Now they're trying to turn Romney into someone who hates poor people. The very same rats in Media Matters, who, by the way, if we had a legitimate government, they would be indicted for tax fraud, all of their assets seized going back 5 years because they're no longer really a nonprofit organization. Media Matters is violating all of the rules of a 501c3. If we had a Republican Congress with any guts and brains, they would be tearing Media Matters tax records to shreds. They would arrest them. They would seize their assets, and that would be the end of this Stalinist group funded by George Soros. But it goes on. It gets worse. It gets even worse than what I am telling you. In Europe, Hitler is back. Anti-Semitism. Kristallnacht, as you may recall, if you know anything of history, occurred. It was known as the Night of the Broken Glass. Coordinated attacks against Jews throughout Nazi Germany and Austria on November 9th and 10th, 1938, carried out by SA paramilitary and civilians. German authorities looked the other way without intervening. The attacks left the streets covered with broken glass from the windows of Jewish-owned stores, buildings, and synagogues. That was the beginning of the Holocaust. That led to the gas chambers. That led to the extermination of 6 million Jews in the ovens. Why do I say Kristallnacht has returned to France? Today, 4 Jews injured after a bomb thrown at a kosher store. Other recent attacks in France. August 7th, 2012, Paris. A 17-year-old girl, Jewish, was a suburb. The Arab attacker made anti-Semitic insults during the incident, including, "Dirty Jew, I'm going to put you in the ground." July 20th, 2012, Paris. A synagogue was desecrated for the third time in 10 days when vandals threw prayer books and shawls on the floor and shattered the building's windows. July 5th, 2012, Toulouse. A 17-year-old student at a Jewish school where 4 Jews were murdered by Mohammed Merah on March 19th, was assaulted on a train going from Toulouse to Lyon. June 8th, 2012, Sarcey, France. 18-year-old Jew physically assaulted and had a phone stolen by assailants who were shouting anti-Semitic insults. June 2nd, 2012, Lyon. 3 Jewish youth wearing skull caps assaulted while walking to a Jewish school. A group of more than 10 Muslim assailants surrounded the youths chanting "Dirty Jew" and beat them with hammers and bars. March 26, 2012, Paris. A 12-year-old boy was beaten outside the Ozar HaTorah Jewish school in Paris by Arab youths reciting anti-Semitic slogans. March 19, 2012, Toulouse. 4 Jews shot and killed at the Ozar HaTorah Jewish school by an armed Muslim terrorist on a motorcycle. His name, Mohammed Merah. Shall I go on? The fact of the matter is the Holocaust is in its early phases in Europe, and Obama is ignoring it with the big lie, talking about a video made by a shadowy character who lives here and was offensive to Muhammad. Make no mistake about it. They're out to kill all of us. I'll be right back.